Hey friends, I should probably hold this, eh Mark? We are quick, where are we? This is my place in Stratford, Ontario, 2 hours outside of Toronto. We're going to build a little studio here a couple days a week, and we'll shoot in Toronto a couple days a week as well. But, and my friends over here on Periscope, I like to go on Periscope or Instagram at Robin Black MMA. That's where I get a lot of different questions and ideas and curiosities to follow. But today, I wanted to talk a little bit about CM Punk. Phil, what's his name? Phil Brooks. And I have a different perspective now. You know, we change, our views of things change, and that's a good thing. We learn more, we gather more information about external things, about ourselves, and we should change. We should be open to having different ideas and having different opinions and feelings on things than we had a while ago. And I have a very different thought on CM Punk now, and I'm happy that I do. It makes me feel good to know I can have an open mind, I can change. I'll get right to it. I'm not going to... I'm really for him now. I am for the idea of a guy taking on a hard challenge. I think I'm excited to see him try to do it now. You know, there's a number of reasons. This is my YouTube channel, so I'm telling you how I feel and why I got to this. You might not care. You might be a CM Punk fan. I don't have all that much insight. Duke Rufus, his coach, is a friend. I have observed him quite humbly and quietly being around the Rufus Sport team. When we were in Detroit, we saw him, and I've seen him a few places, watched him train a little bit in little clips here and there, spoke with Duke a lot. I respect Duke Rufus a lot. A lot of these coaches I've learned so much in the last decade and more. But I'll tell you how I arrived at it, not because I necessarily think you give a shit about my feelings or thoughts on this, especially if you're a CM Punk fan. You're like, who the fuck is this guy? He's a guy with a YouTube channel, does some shit on, commentates some fights. But only because sometimes I think looking at how you look at things is interesting. I find it interesting anyways. It's something we do a lot here on my YouTube channel, is look at why. So, Jose Aldo's a brilliant fighter. Why? How? You know? Ronda Rousey got beat by Holly Holm. How? Why? Curiosity. Why and how, to me, is of deep interest. So how did I, as one individual who is obsessed with fighting, how did I end up at this point where I am passionately cheering for this man? At first, when you see somebody come in and they don't... He couldn't... Let's backtrack. He couldn't know what it is to fight. He didn't even spar ever before. It's not possible. A human being can't know that. I don't know what it is to perform open heart surgery. No matter how much open heart surgery I watch, I don't know the process. I don't know. I can hear, oh, you go to school for 7 years. You study biology. You study, like, I can look at that. I can see it, but I don't know. Nobody knows, and he didn't know. So the idea at first that somebody, and he was like, great, I have a UFC deal. I'm going to train striking now. That to me is crazy. And it also, and I chatted with Rogan about this when I was on his thing, and we chatted about it. You don't know what you don't know. It's called unconscious incompetence. You don't even know you're incompetent. You don't even know what it is to know. And so the poor guy put himself into this situation, unconscious incompetence. His experience fighting was he watched it, and he did jiu-jitsu in a gi with some friends, good friends with that are super talented, by the way. So the poor man is sitting there. I love the idea, but he had no idea what it was. Also at that time, you are sitting there, and the UFC, which I had a much deeper connection to the UFC that now, years later, my connection is to martial arts, and the UFC is a way that I examine martial arts. But at that time, the UFC was this thing where the NBA, the NFL, NHL, whatever, the best fight the best, the top, this is the pinnacle. So many things have changed since that feeling that a lot of people had, myself included. One is the UFC isn't that anymore. The UFC is this cool place that we get to watch martial arts. That's what the UFC is. Doesn't matter what commercials they run or how they present it. What the UFC is this cool company that exists that every single 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 and sometimes 5 times a month, you get to see 10 to 13 everything on the line martial arts contests. That's what it is for me now. I'm thankful for the UFC that it exists. I'm thankful that I get to watch martial arts competition happen at a fairly high level every single week or many weeks, and watch it, not only each fight, constantly learning and examining and being surprised or being more deeply curious or whatever, all these little pieces, but also the thing itself. What's happening? This is Periscope. Sometimes we get great questions here. So maybe some will pop up. Maybe we'll try to take some at the end. But so now myself and many other people view the UFC, thankfully, as this place where we get to watch martial arts. Whereas at one time, I think it represented for a lot of us something much more than that. So in that context, an unconsciously incompetent, famous person saying, wouldn't it be cool if I was in the UFC? I've done a little jiu-jitsu. I'm in now. You were like, that's fucked up. But there's no reason to judge this human being. This is a human being. This is a person. This is like a biological organism that is of, Homo sapien. Like, he's just one of us. He's just a guy. He's got a family, and he grew up. He's got parents and friends and hobbies, and he's a human being. To watch a human being first take on something that was somewhat ridiculous. Why was it ridiculous? Well, he was unconsciously incompetent. He didn't understand what it was, so therefore he couldn't even put himself in any logical way to do it. In a context where this is where the best fight the best, well, this is really dumb. But now, years later, he is no longer unconsciously incompetent. He's somewhere between consciously incompetent, which means he's not that good, but he knows it, right? And when you're consciously incompetent, or the next one would be consciously competent. It's like, I'm not bad. I've figured out how to do some stuff and I understand it. So again, unconscious incompetence. I'm probably pretty good. I don't really know what it is, but if you've never thrown a high kick or a front kick and you are going to fight in the UFC, you're unconsciously incompetent. So that was whatever year that was. Now he would be consciously incompetent. I'm not very good. I can't throw a spinning hook kick very well. But I know that. And as a result, as a human being with goals and dreams and hopes and motivations like all of us, he can work hard. So he's different now. He's able to go in there as somebody, and I don't know him and he doesn't know me and he has no reason to take my opinion. But if I'm him, I'm going to describe to people how incredibly shocking it was to realize that you didn't even know what you didn't even know, and you still don't really know what you don't know, because if you're a blue belt of a year or so and you've boxed a little bit and sparred only with people, you don't know anything. I would share that because that's fascinating. And now you find yourself in a situation where, because you're either somewhere between consciously incompetent and consciously competent, like, actually, when I put a rear naked choke on some guys, they can't get out of it. That's pretty good. I'm a blue belt that can rear naked choke a guy. Or actually, I'm not really good at everything, but I know I got a hell of a triangle, which I use to set up this other thing. Or, I don't know, my striking isn't all that good, but I'm consciously incompetent at slip right hand. I've started to understand how to move my feet in such a way that I set these things up. Consciously incompetent, not all that good at these things, to consciously competent. Actually, I'm pretty good at the next level. What you cannot achieve, what he will never achieve, I will never achieve. Oh, sorry, shouldn't say that. What we will only, men like him, myself, and you, will achieve in only small ways, but it's still valuable. It's still something wonderful, is unconscious competence. That means I'm good and I don't even have to think about it. And those, even at this stage, he might have gained in that one thing. He's got that one thing he does pretty damn well, and it just kind of happens. So bam. And his friends and the people he trains with, and Biggie and Duke and all those guys over there are like, fuck, man, if you can catch him with that knee off that thing, you do that thing pretty well. That's where he's at now. So now we have a guy who, according to 5 years ago, still on no level should be fighting in that UFC. But in this one, it's just martial arts. It's martial arts every week. And we can, in all good fairness, put him up against that Mike Jackson or somebody not very fucking good. Because that happens anyways. It's not like it's only for him. We see whether it is a new division in women's fighting or a small division in men's fighting, or there's only, how many heavyweights? Shevchenko, like, there's levels, right? There's levels. That, I forget now, I'm sorry. Names, there's so many of them. And now I'm commentating and analyzing with ACB and KSW, BKB. Make sure you check out Bare Knuckle Boxing, BKB. It's something unique. It's a unique art form. So now I'm adding all these other names. So I forget what her name was. Priscilla Keshaher. So she still beat me up. She beat the shit out of CM Punk. Tell you that. It was 45 or 35? That was 25.
Oh, that was 25.
So she weighs 125. He's fighting at 170. She would beat him up pretty bad. She would. But he's been training a lot of jiu-jitsu, and we met Duke's guy and got to spend a little time and talk to Duke a lot about his jiu-jitsu coach. With a blue belt, with a hard beginner's mind, understanding that you're new, this guy can do it. And they can get him a guy, and it's fair, that's not all that good. A guy who's 1-0 or 0-1. And 5 years ago, part of the outrage is that should have happened at King of the Cage. That should have happened at all the places the rest of us all fought. But now you could fight. I mean, I'm 48 years old, but I have a small amount of people who are aware of me. I create a little controversy. There's enough people who dislike me and enough people who like me. If I really wanted to fight in the UFC, it wouldn't be all that hard. If I spent all my time, I only weigh maybe 158 pounds, but if I spent all my time getting people excited about seeing me fight CM Punk, I could probably do it. We're living in a time where Robin Black could probably fight in the UFC in some small place in China. And I was a sub-mediocre fighter who started in my late 30s. But that brings me to the last point of why I'm for this guy. And I hope he does well. And I want to see him, I don't give a fuck if he wins. And neither should you, and neither should he. And I know that sounds wrong. But to do your best to increase your likelihood of winning, you focus on being great, on performing well, on executing everything, on being in a mindset where you cannot be broken, on powering through it, on et cetera, et cetera. Winning is the outcome. Winning is the byproduct of proper focus. So he shouldn't give a shit about winning either. What he should give a shit about is being better than he's ever been. If he does that, he has a chance of winning if they give him the right guy. And I'd like to see that, because that's a person. That's a human being. Just like you. Sure, he's famous and he made some money and he got to do some shit you didn't do. But he's just a guy. He's just somebody's kid. He's somebody's friend. He's somebody's brother. And if he can fucking go do it, so can you. And you can take inspiration from people like this. And you really can. They're like, well, of course he got in the UFC because he was already WWE and he was famous. He had to do that too. He had to go do that, right? He had to go and train. He's not a super athletic guy, and from what I understand, I don't watch that kind of performance, although I appreciate it. But he had to go do that too. It's not like somebody gave him that and then that got him this. He earned that too. So this is a guy going through his life, taking on large challenges. One of the mistakes of the last one, it was too large. It was too large. Not just the opponent. Fighting at your late 30s with no combat sports experience.
And he's straight edge, too.
Yeah, and he's straight edge. Yeah. And I'm like, what does that matter? That's probably go. Oh, right. In other words, what Mark is saying is, if there's ways that like people would bend the rules, although it's hard to do, but if you got money, people with a lot of money can bend a lot of rules and find ways to do things. He's straight edge. This guy's going to do it. But yeah, right. I see your point. He was clean in a world where everybody was dirty. I shouldn't say I don't fucking know how it works in WWE, but from what I can gather, when I look at them, they don't pass the smell test, and yet he was a big star there. How did he do that? Hard work. Oh, he had a personality. Developed that. Nothing was fucking given to this guy. And yes, but it was based on that, which he earned. And all of that becomes irrelevant now because instead, it doesn't matter what you thought before. It doesn't matter what he did before. This is a new moment in time. This human being now is a blue belt, has trained really hard, is really focused, is dedicated. I could watch his humility as I watched him want to be quiet and in the background. And again, that's very useful. We don't all have access to that. But if you live in Milwaukee, you can train. And if you do enough hard work, Duke will let you be backstage at some of these places too. That lets you get comfortable there. Like it lets you get into that environment. I hope this guy does really well. Again, I don't give a fuck if he wins or not. It's irrelevant. That's just the outcome. That's the consequences of a great night. What I hope he does is has this amazing experience. And I sidetracked myself, but what I was going to say earlier is it brings me to my last point. I did this. Do you know what I mean? I did this. I didn't do it at the UFC, but back then that wasn't possible. Now it would be. You know, I worked my way up really hard, being ridiculed in music and television and being in a glam rock band and fighting my way up and working really hard to earn enough money to survive doing that. And when I did that, I earned my way onto television and I outworked other people and they auditioned 40 and I got it. And then I worked from there. And then when I did that, I went and I loved martial arts and I wanted to fucking fight. Actually, I didn't want to fight that bad. I wanted to understand it because I want to do this. This is what I love to do. I love to spend all day, every day, training martial arts and looking at it and trying to understand it and then find the little nuggets and share it with people. There's beauty in this shit, man. I'm fucking telling you. And when you watch this guy fight, the beauty of what you're going to see is somebody at that low level with amplified pressure. Yes, he has experience with it because he performed in front of many thousands. That helps. Actually, come to think of it, and we'll do another one of these because there's a number of other things I want to talk about this. This is just setting the table. I'm hoping that it will influence a few of you because at this point, you got a guy who's about 40, who's not super athletic, who doesn't have, he's got a good work ethic and is humble and wants to try to accomplish something. Very hard, something very, very hard. And now he's doing it in an environment where it's not out of line to find him a low-level guy, well matched up. Not somebody he should be able to beat easy either. Just somebody else that's, pretty good. Gym good. And he should be able to go in and have a hard fight and experience it. And win or lose, will he fight more? If he really wants to, sure. I wanted to fight till I won. I lost my first two. My second one looked very much like his first fight. Brown belt in jiu-jitsu. After a few shots, ended up getting a rear naked choke. Very similar. Except for instead of him faking the big punch and taking me down, I swung a big punch. But my first fight, I got shit kicked and then came back and fought hard for 7 minutes. That's the kind of experience I hope he has. Except I hope he wins.
That's what he wants to.
Yeah.
He wants to go to the fight.
Yeah. He wants to fight. He wants to experience it. He wants to be pushed. And now he's probably good enough-ish that he can have that. Yes, I get it. It'll be a king of the cage level fight. But let's not pretend it isn't. Let's enjoy this. We fucking see low-level fights in the UFC all the time. This guy's no different. I want him to do well because I relate to it. I did this. And I also, I can't even imagine, man. I tried not to let it bug me, but they made fucking fun of me so hard. Now, if we put this up on Twitter, some dummies will say, oh, that guy sucks. He thinks McGregor would beat Mayweather or whatever. That you don't care about that shit. And I didn't care too hard then. But back then, man, they were ruthless. They wanted to run me the fuck out of this business. And I said, no, I'm going to be here and I'm going to do it. And now I commentate all over the world. And I'm good at it. That's what this guy wants. He wants to go earn his shit. And it's not easier for him. You think it is. Oh, it's easy. That guy came over. It's harder. It's harder because he isn't very good. You can't be very good now. You can't be. That was his mistake in the beginning, is he didn't understand that. I was in an office back at Fight Network, and even some of my friends who didn't understand anything about fighting, I mean, they never trained or anything, and it's a complex thing, right? They'd be like, dude, this guy could totally be a champion, and they'd be serious, and I'd say, you don't understand how training works. He's like, yeah, but everybody's different. It's like 39-year-olds cannot become, it just dimmed here, I don't know if that affected anything, but 39-year-olds can't become world champions at any sport when they're not super athletes. Bowling? Curling? I don't know. No, those are complex sports too. But you can go out and be tested and pushed and inspire people. And you can go out and suffer through all the mockery. You can suffer through everybody just wanting you to leave. Hey, Ben Saunders, love you, man. Ben Saunders, proud of you for that fight. Ben Saunders has popped up in here. We're proud of you, man. You have your share of highlight reels. Your brother gets to have that one. That's all right. I'm talking about CM Punk and the fact that... you know what? The experience of fighting at this stage, he's worked really hard. I hope he does well. I guess that's the end. It's nice to see Ben on here. Ben's a brilliant fighter and a brilliant martial artist. I'm very inspired by him, and he's a good dude, too. But when guys like that, and they will, that's the thing. And CM Punk, I know you're not watching this. I wouldn't either. But if anybody knows him, they'll fucking respect you. They do a little now. You did get in there. But the second time, when you took a shit kicking, kill a beat. When you took a shit kicking and you come back, that's another level. You're already doing another level. Now just go out there and fucking do your best. Have an open mind. Don't think about the consequences. Don't think about the outcome. Think about being free out there and enjoying it. When you step in there the second time, your face was all smashed up. Your ear looked like, I have meat in the fridge. It looked like your ear. They respect that. They do. I get treated a lot differently than all these other guys who never fought. You know, and I know I celebrate these fighters and their skills, and they appreciate that. But when I go to these places, these guys treat me really good. Because I fucking did it 9 times. I got taken out on a stretcher, and I got embarrassed, and I got made fun of, and I cried my heart out when I lost. And I know he did too. I respect that. I hope you do well, man. I do. We're going to come back and take another look. Once there's and maybe by the time you're watching this, there is one, but once there's an opponent announced, and I'm going to give Duke a call too, and give Biggie Rhodes a call and gather a little bit of information. Not going to give away anything, but I'll gather some information about his work ethic and you know, all those things. And we'll talk about this again. I'm cheering for this guy. I don't care who knows it. Blackout.